Hey everyone, welcome to the program, WRSA Radio. I'm your host, G1, as always. I hope you're having a good week. It's been a good one for me so far. Let's hope that continues into the weekend. I am going to jump right into the topic this week because it's a little bit of a journey. We got a long way to go here. So we're going to look at things that are happening in the UK and how it portends our future here in the U.S. Now, perhaps you don't follow events in the UK, particularly the political events, because let's face it, UK politics are, well, they're more of a mess than our own politics. It's very confusing, and the party names are different, and what they actually stand for, what they mean, it's all kind of a mess, at least from our perspective. It makes sense to them, doesn't make sense to us. Generally, however, what you should know is that almost every party in the UK is more left of our center here in the US. In other words, our Republican Party would be considered far right in the UK, whereas here, for the most part, the GOP is a very center moderate party, and of course that's officially it's ignoring the reality of the uniparty. But anyway, it has outlying connections to actual right wingers like myself, and I hazard most of you who are listening are right wingers. So when they talk about conservatives in the UK, those people are sitting about where the Democrats were. Back in the early 90s or late 80s at least. With that perspective, understand that very recently there was an election there, and the left-wing party, or a left-wing party, took power and installed a new prime minister. There were gains by Nigel Farage and his party in the UK Parliament, which is a good thing. Nigel Farage is probably the most right-wing politician, at least famous, world-renowned one in the UK. He's kind of a hot-button guy right now. But it's a good thing. It bodes well because in spite of what the media is telling you, there's a growing wave of right-wing populism in the UK, and the long-term outlook is very good to see the movement grow and gain strength, which may lead to even to them taking the majority and electing the prime minister, if all things kind of go right and trend the right way. Now, all of that, of course, has the UK uniparty terrified. Just as we have a uniparty, so do they, and they're facing their own political crisis, the same as we're facing here. Now, all of that is background material for what has happened there over the last couple of weeks. As you may or may not know, the UK is also facing a crisis with illegal immigration. Much like the US, wave after wave of illegal immigrants are flooding the shores and drastically altering the demographics. The previously, all-white country or majority-white country, and all-white towns and villages are changing. The government is forcing the population to choke on diversity even if they don't want it. With that diversity comes crime and poverty and all kinds of other social ills. So as rational people are going to do, more and more people in the UK are seeing this forced diversity as a problem that needs to be addressed. It needs to be stopped. There's a growing movement, much like here in the US, to immediately end the immigration and institute forced deportations. And all of this comes to a head when we have barbaric acts of criminal behavior that take place, and it causes a public outcry, public outrage, which is what has happened over the last 2 weeks. There's been multiple riots that have taken place, multiple attacks. There was over the weekend a virtual street gang war in one town. The name of the town escaped me, but we had migrant gangs fighting one another and attacking innocent people, outright stabbing people. But the culmination of this recent kind of wave, this spree of high-profile attacks, was an attack on a little girl's dance party by a Rwandan teen, wherein 3 little girls were killed. These were 10, 11, 12 preteen girls, tweener girls, I guess you would say. And they were just dancing, listening to Taylor Swift, apparently. And this young Rwandan teenager took offense to this, and he attacked them. 9 other people were wounded, including a teacher, and these 3 little girls lost their lives. And this was a knife attack by a teenage boy who, now brace yourself, if you've heard this one before, he was on the radar of law enforcement. Apparently he had been openly advocating for genocide like the one that had occurred in his home country. Now I say home country there, and that is challenged by the left. It's called right-wing disinformation because the kid was born in the UK. However, his parents were not. His parents were immigrants. He's not from the UK, not really, in spite of an accident of birth. He's not English. He's being raised as a Rwandan. Sorry, that's how it works. That's what happens. He's not a UK citizen. This attack prompted a series of street demonstrations by concerned parents and outraged citizens, and yes, right-wing political activists calling for the government to stop the boats, as well as to end the 2-tiered policing system. They were protecting the identity of this young attacker and not releasing it because they said that it would fuel problems. And this is the critical part of this that I want to focus on, the part that links really all of this together. It's blatantly obvious that there are 2 systems of policing, 2 systems of justice in the UK, specifically in the London Metro Police. If you're foreign, Muslim, Indo-Pakistani, African, whatever, then you're given a very wide field to do whatever you want with little to no fear of the police doing anything about it. This includes any kind of political demonstration, but it runs well into petty crime and even assaults and rapes. The police drag their feet, they ignore the activity, they deliberately obstruct justice and conceal the identity of people who they arrest, they obfuscate, they try to do everything they can in the name of preventing what they call extremist violence. To put it into clear terms, the UK police are willing to allow foreigners to assault, rape, rob, and terrorize the native population of the United Kingdom because they are afraid that if they arrest these people, it will draw attention to how much crime they are responsible for, and the native population of the UK will demand that all of these people be returned to their country of origin. You can't state it any more clearly than that. The irony here, of course, is that by their inaction, they are making the far more likely outcome of all this to be even more likely. And that being that the native population is going to eventually reach a breaking point, and the response will not be to just send people back in a orderly fashion. It will be to do so with as much lethal force as can be utilized. Now that is assuming, of course, that the situation is as it appears from the outside, at least. The more cynical among us will look to what is happening and suggest that a violent uprising is exactly what the Uniparty wants. Now, I don't think that's actually the case. I think they just want exactly what they're getting. They want just enough outrage and just enough violence to justify harsher forms of surveillance and police action. Not on the foreigners. No, that won't do. No, they want these tools to be in place to be used on the native population. So they don't want a full-scale civil conflict. They can't control that. They don't. That's a fire that once it's lit, it burns out of control. They want just enough violence, just enough outrage to allow them to act for your protection, to protect our democracy, our sacred democracy. what happened over the last couple of days in the UK is that the London Metro Police were faced with a protest outside of 10 Downing Street, which is the Prime Minister's home, like our White House. This protest was live streamed on multiple outlets, multiple channels. I watched as it was taking place. And what we saw was a heavy-handed police action, which, of course, instigated a response from the protesters. See, they don't give the native population the hands-off approach. The protesters were told that they could not protest there due to some restrictions being put into place, some local ordinance, a sleight of hand, a wave of the wand, and magically your rights go out the window. So they were told they couldn't protest there. And this escalated into a clash with the police, and ultimately the police were unfortunately able to outnumber the protesters and kettle them into a very small area, kind of a fenced area, and they proceeded to arrest almost everyone that was there. Everyone that had not gotten away sooner, had not moved out of the area sooner, they kettled them into this area, and they began to just systematically arrest them. They had them standing there for hours. This was completely inexcusable. They weren't arresting people who had caused specific acts of violence, not just them. They were literally just randomly snatching people. There was officers that were recorded on camera saying, just grab whoever, it doesn't matter. It was a kick in the guts to watch that. And that was the intent. They wanted to send a message that any dissent, any questioning of the official stance and policy is unacceptable. And then what followed the next day was even more telling, and it rings very harmonic with what we're facing here in the U.S. The following day, the new Prime Minister gets on TV in front of the Union Jack and proceeds to tell the world, sorry that those girls died, so sorry, but what's even more horrible, and is what will not be tolerated, is the protesting that happened. He tells everyone that the people who'd protested are violent, far-right thugs who will be arrested, and that it somehow is the most evil thing in the world. And it immediately justifies the use of even harsher and stricter forms of surveillance being put into place. To be far right is presented as being evil and unacceptable. And over the next day into today, I saw many what I would call right-wing British YouTubers who support the protests coming out to denounce the far right. Oh, I'm not far right. And profess that they didn't support the violence and they didn't. Do you realize how stupid that sounds? You're dancing to their tune. You're doing exactly what they want you to do. They wave the magic word far right, and you dance like a puppet, like it's a spell that has power over you. Screw that. Dispel that incantation. Rob it of its power. Embrace the term. Yes, I am far right. Yes, I am far right. Now, what are you going to do about it? You think that gives you power over me? You think it does anything to me? You think it makes me evil? It makes me less than you? It only gives them power if we allow it. If we normalize, hey, far right doesn't mean anything. Far right means I want safety and security for my family and my country. Oh, how horrible is that? This is happening right here in the U.S. We're called terrorists and extremists. Well, extremism in the cause of liberty is no vice, as a wise man once said. So yes, I am an extremist. None of that means anything. Labels and words don't mean anything absent of action. What I know is that the very same people who are calling concerned parents in the UK and concerned parents in the United States, those same people that are calling us right-wing extremists, are also the same people telling you Orange Man bad. They're the ones telling you that there are no genders. They're the ones telling you that a man can fight a woman in a boxing ring at the Olympics, and that's not a problem. They're the ones telling you that Julian Assange is a bad guy, that Edward Snowden was a traitor. They're the ones telling you that Russia is bad and that Russia is interfering in our elections, that Russia wants Orange Man to be president. They're the ones telling you that Russia just up and decided for no reason to invade Ukraine because Putin's evil. They're the ones telling you that Israel are the good guys and that the Palestinians are evil Islamic terrorists who deserve to have tens of thousands of their men, women, and children killed. Oh, you didn't expect that one, did you? Maybe you need to unlearn some things and ask yourself why you believe anything the official media tells you. Even if it's coming out of the mouth of somebody that you might think is on your side. They openly lie, and they only tell you what the uniparty wants you to think. This is beyond just a message. It's not just here's a message. This is to control your thinking. They want you to think these things. Don't believe a word that they say. They are lying to you, even when they tell you the truth. Now that is all that I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab, Nice Crew, and the Dry Dock. And I'll see you on the next episode.